Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be revealing 8 big moves that Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, could make this offseason to give this team more cap space for the 2025 offseason to spend on players in free agency and via draft. Before we get into the content today, for live reactions to Steelers news all throughout the 2025 offseason, you guys can follow me on X at Jack_Sperry. Every time there's a new story, every time there's a new rumor, everything. I put out my reaction on X before I come here on Steelers Talk. So if you want to see my instant reaction to everything Steelers every single day, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. So let's start this conversation here with the current effective cap space. This number comes from Over the Cap. And what effective cap space means, guys, is the money that you're allowed to spend on free agents and trade pieces, all right? Because you have to spend a certain amount of money on the draft, and you've got other cap charges that go to the team every single year. So this is the money right here, just about $56 million, just under $57 million that the Steelers currently have available to spend on free agents. So let's make some moves to create some more cap space here. Let's start with cutting Larry Ogunjobi and others, all right? And there's still, I think, 4 players that the Steelers could cut to save quite a bit of cap space here. The first one being Larry Ogunjobi. And, Ogunjobi, as a full-time starter last year, just had a sack and a half, 5 tackles for loss, 41 total tackles. It's just underwhelming, especially for somebody of the cap hit that Ogunjobi is. And I do think that the Steelers would be better served by letting Ogunjobi go because you save $7 million if you do so. And I think that $7 million can certainly be used in other areas to get different players. And I think that in such a good defensive tackle class, the Steelers can pretty easily replace Ogunjobi in the NFL draft this year with somebody in the middle rounds. So some other potential cuts here. I think Cole Holcomb, coming off of that really nasty knee injury, didn't play at all last year. I just don't know if you can trust him enough to have the cap hit that he's going to have in 2025. So I think you'd rather have the $6 million you get by cutting him. Cordero Patterson, to be frank, he's a little fat now. He's not the same player that he used to be. Saved $2.8 million by letting him go. And then Cameron Johnston, it's really unfortunate because I was really excited to see him punt for this team last year. And he gets injured in the first game, and then Corliss Waitman comes in, and he's cheaper than he is right now, and he punted really well for this team. So I think that Johnston might be cut at some point here. That saves another $1.5 million. Then 2 more moves that I think are a must for GM Omar Khan this offseason is you got to restructure Alex Highsmith and Pat Fryermuth's deals. Got multiple years left on those contracts. The cap gets bigger every single year. It just doesn't make sense to not restructure these 2 contracts. And you can save $7.8 million by restructuring Highsmith's deal, and you can save $7.2 by restructuring Fryermuth's deal. So that's a big chunk of change right there. That's $15 million just in these 2 moves alone to add to the Steelers' effective cap space. So these moves would save, in total, the cuts and the restructures, $32.3 million in cap space for the Steelers this offseason. That's quite a bit because that gets the Steelers to $89.2 million in effective cap space this year, which is obviously significant, all right? That is a lot of money. That's going to allow you to pay a contract for Matthew Stafford if you want to go trade for him and elevate your quarterback position. It's going to allow you to maybe, if you want to go the Justin Fields route and pay $15 to $20 million for Justin Fields, you're going to have a ton of money to spend on everybody else on the roster, right? You're going to be able to build one of the more complete rosters in football around Justin Fields or Aaron Rodgers or anybody else that signs like a $20 million per season contract because you've created all this cap space heading into free agency. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is Pittsburgh just one good offseason away from being Super Bowl contenders? Personally, I'm an optimist. I think that if they really kill it this offseason, they can get there, all right? I think they can. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Yes or no? With one good offseason, can the Steelers get to Super Bowl contention? Let me know your thoughts for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a second. I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics here in just a second. But when that happens, go down there in the comment section. Simply give me a yes or a no to today's pinned comment. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. And they've got this awesome Steelers beanie available on their website on sale right now, guys. It's still cold in Pittsburgh, all right? It's cold a lot of different areas around the United States right now. So wherever you are around the world, you can always use a good Steelers beanie. And right now you can get this one for just $20. That is a fantastic steal from our friends at Fanatics. You can go to chatsports.com/beanie to get this beanie in your closet today and stay bundled up this winter. Then another thing the Steelers could do, and I want to get this out of the way, I'm not advocating for this, but they could trade George Pickens to get a little bit more cap relief if they want. Now, for me, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, all right? And we'll talk about the savings that you get by cutting George in just a second, but I'm not an advocate of trading George, guys. I don't think the wide receiver market this year is good enough to let go of George this offseason, unless Pickens is like demanding to get a contract extension or he's not playing next year. If I'm the Steelers, I want George in this locker room next year because he is a phenomenal receiving talent. And, I think what I want them to do is I want them to keep him for another season. And I would like them to bring in a respected veteran at the wide receiver position to help mentor him, teach him how to be a true professional. Apparently, Deontay Johnson was not that for him when he was here. But two guys that come to my mind is Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp. These are two guys that are heralded for their work ethic, for their professionalism, all these different things that are the concern of the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to George Pickens. I think that Adams and Kupp are two very well-respected leaders in this day and age at the wide receiver position that I think Pickens would listen to and hopefully turn around what has been a tumultuous start his tenure here in Pittsburgh. I really, really hope he can be here for the long term, especially because if you trade him, you only save like $3.5 million if you send him elsewhere. And, $3.5 million is not nothing, but, to trade away one of the most talented receivers in the game, I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze there. And if you can keep George Pickens this offseason, that's what I want them to do. But if they do trade George Pickens, God, they better have a plan at number one wide receiver. Whether that's Devontae Adams, whether that's somebody early in the draft, whether that's something else, they better have a plan to be this team's number one receiver if they trade him. Because last year they traded Deontay Johnson away, obviously, and they didn't really have a plan. I mean, if you do that again this offseason, you trade away George Pickens, you better frickin' have a plan, Omar Khan, because if you don't, it's going to be ugly in the wide receiver room next year. Then another potential big move that Omar could consider is trading Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had kind of a down year last year in terms of the production he brought to the table. He is getting older, and his cap hit is still very large. So if the Steelers want some cap relief, they can trade Minkah. The only thing is, I think it's really unlikely because he's so close with Mike Tomlin. And, we talk about Cam Hayward and this team wanting to get him a ring before he retires in 2 years all the time. Tomlin wants to get Minkah a ring here in Pittsburgh as well. Like, it's not just Cam. Like, there's a multitude of guys that have been here for a while that Tomlin wants to have the confetti rain down on, and Minkah's one of those players. He's practically a player coach at this point in time. He sits in on the defensive coaches meeting every single week with Mike Tomlin and Tara Lawson and all the defensive staff. Like, he's pretty much a player coach out there, and I just don't know if the super loyal Mike Tomlin is going to sign off on trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick. And, the Steelers would save $8.6 million by letting him go and trading him away. Plus, they would get another draft pick in a trade, obviously. But they also take on $13.71 million in dead cap this offseason, which is a lot. All right, that is a lot. And, I think when Mike Tomlin, looks at the calculus here, this is not something that he's going to want to do. He's not going to want to take on $13+ million in dead cap to trade away one of his favorite players on the entire team. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that it does make a little bit of sense in terms of team building. And, if you can get a good draft pick for Minkah, I think that, that would be a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. But I just think that, if you're going to trade Minkah, you better embrace a full rebuild. You better trade Watt. You better trade Hayward. You better trade all of your expensive, older defensive pieces along with him, because I think that if you're going to go through the rebuild route, you got to really go all in on that. But the Steelers clearly aren't doing that. They're trying to win now, and I think that they believe Minkah Fitzpatrick is the type of player that can help them win now. And I'll spoil it for you guys right now. They're not going to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick, all right? Like, it's a move that they could consider. There's some rumblings that there's some people in the building that would prefer to trade him after kind of a down season last year and a massive cap hit heading into 2025. But Mike Tomlin is the guy in charge here in Pittsburgh, and Minkah's one of his favorite players. So I just really, really would be shocked if they ended up considering a trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick at the end of the day. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I think that the Steelers are going to be making some moves here in preparation for NFL free agency here, clearing up cap space so that they can fill up this roster with more talent heading into the 2025 season. Every time they make a big move, we got you covered here on Steelers Talk. So what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button right now.